Just a quick note before you watch this epic struggle. Stick around after the end of the main video as I have some thoughts on how this repair went and what I might have done differently. Enjoy! So I've got this C64C here which says on it, works, no sound, no tape work, which bizarrely was up on my shelves. I thought that the last ZX81 was the last machine out of the last batch that Paul gave me to repair, but I found another Commodore 64 in plain sight on my shelves. Sorry, I don't know where the next one's going to pop up. Anyway, this one, I've already been inside it because the no sound thing sounded familiar, and indeed the fuse was blown. I have taken the SID out just to test it, but I just want to show you that when I plug this in with Des Test Max, it passes. I won't go through the whole thing, but you'll have to take my word for it. It actually runs through the whole test and passes. Occasionally it will crash, but I did it 4 or 5 times and it only crashed once. So that's unusual. If I plug in my normal diagnostics, this is with RAM, no RAM check version, it stops on PLA test every time. I can do this a few times, and every time it sometimes actually says failed PLA test. Yeah, bad. So that's weird. If I put it onto the dead test, you get the normal black screen so that the RAM is okay, and I'm fairly sure that the RAM is absolutely fine on this board. It stops on 0 page. But if we go back to Des Test Max, this will be, I won't run it to the switch part of it. It says at the top there it's testing the 0 page, and it passes. This is a really weird one. So it's pointing to the PLA on the normal diagnostics. Des Test doesn't pick up anything, and Dead Test says the 0 page is bad, but it's not, because the Des Test Max counts that out. This is the other unusual thing. If I plug in, my Kung Fu Flash just fell apart because the screw's not long enough. I'll just do it bare. If I plug in my Kung Fu Flash 2, I can play a game. And I have got sound because I fixed the fuse. That's what was causing that problem. So thankfully the SID is okay. Anyway, that's distracting. Which says to me that the PLA is actually fine, and these super PLAs are notoriously difficult to kill. Now, it's not the processor. I don't think it will be the CIAs, although if you notice in the diagnostics that I ran, the CIAs did not count up. So it could be a bad CIA, or it could be a bad ROM. It's not the processor. It's not. I don't think it's the PLA. It's not the RAM. It's not the VIC-2. It's not the SID. So that leaves us with both CIAs. One of them could be causing issues, or one of the ROMs. And I'm not sure how to test it. Now I can scope around looking for bad signals and things on the CIA. It's pretty much no signals on this CIA. I'm not sure. I'll probably best compare it with a working one and see if there is anything, but I don't think, unless there's keyboard inputs, there should be anything here, especially on this. So that looks like a bad signal. It looks like it's being pulled high. So that was pin 19 on the CIA. I'm going to have to look up the pin outs on this now. I think we're into, ooh. There's a clock. That looks like a data line. That looks like an address line. Yeah, these are all the address lines up here, I think. Look at the ROMs. There's another slightly dodgy looking signal. That looks like it's being pulled high. That's the second to last pin on this smaller ROM. I can't remember which one it is. And that looks like not a great signal on there. Okay, so pin 4 on here is an address line, and I don't think that is the issue. I think that's probably a symptom. Pin 22 on here, which is the kernel and basic ROM, and this is the character ROM. Pin 22 on this one and pin 20 on this one are the chip select lines. So let's have a look at those. So that one. That looks right. There's nothing wrong with that. 20. Chip select on that one looks a bit high. So that's 4.8 volts peak to peak. And this one is 5.6 volts peak to peak. Right, so I think that the basic and kernel ROMs contained in this one, their chip select is coming from this chip over here, U3. And I'll get the shine off my screen. So it's pin 13, 12, 13 and 12 are the outputs. So depending on which one is selected, it's which half of the ROM is selected. So I think that's the kernel side of the ROM, which is on pin 12, I think. And then on 13, that's just high at the moment. But look on the input side, which is 11, that looks like it's working well. If I power cycle the machine with pin 13 selected, you can see it goes, there's a burst of activity as the machine boots, right about now. And that's just basic being activated, which it doesn't run all the time unless you're doing something in basic, I suppose. But the kernel ROM is running all the time. That looks like it's working fine. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with the character ROM either, because the character ROM is, I mean, obviously the character ROM is working because it's on the screen and the characters are all there. That's weird. I wonder if we get any input on a keyboard. So that's going to be testing the CIA over on the right here. Oh, shift lock's on. We have a perfect keyboard. So I don't think it's the CIA on the right. Could be the CIA on the left. Or it could be the PLA. I honestly don't know. I'm stumped. Tempted to take that CIA out and test that in another board. Yeah, I'm going to pop that CIA out. I can't see any other problems. There was a couple of bad signals on there, but there's a few bad signals everywhere. But the thing is, with a fault like this, is there's no smoking gun. There's nothing that says this is bad. This is like a load of data lines on one chip not doing anything, or it's getting hot. But when you've got a mostly working computer and you see a signal that looks bad in various places, it could be almost anything on the board that's causing that, and there's nothing that leads you to often, well, not always, but it's sometimes difficult to say that the reason for that is this, because it can just be a symptom of the problem rather than the cause. So I am going to have to go a little bit desoldering crazy, I think, and start pulling chips out. I really don't think the processor is the problem, because it was running the game, it was running the diagnostics to a point, it's running basic. Can't be that. I don't think it's the PLA. Although I wouldn't mind the challenge of taking one of these out. Now I don't think it's the ROMs, because they are functioning. The if the kernel ROM was bad, with the half of this chip here, which is the kernel ROM, was bad, the computer wouldn't run. If the basic ROM was bad, you wouldn't get basic prompt. And if the character ROM was bad, you wouldn't have characters on the screen. I don't think it's those. We know the SID is working now. We know this CIA is working. And the VIC2 is working and its associated clock part of the section. There's still a little bit of logic up here. It could be the color RAM is good, the RAM is good, and I think those ROMs are good. I don't know what that is. I think, is that the 555 or 556 timer for the reset circuit? The reset is working, so I'll have a look at that. I'm pretty sure that's okay. And the only suspect left to me is this CIA by process of elimination. Let's get it out. I'm going to shield these components next to it. I don't like boiling up electrolytic capacitors unnecessarily. 330 degrees, 100% airflow. Trying to heat the board more than the chip. Starting to let go now. Oh, wrong ones. There we go. Alright, let's move that out of the way. Just verify this works first. Yep. And I'll put in diagnostics, normal diagnostics, which should just all pass. Yep, and the SID and everything works. Let's pop this CIA out of here. Oh, it's not going to do my socket any good because some of these are got hooks on the end, but such is life. I can always replace the socket. Ah, it's not the CIA. They're both counting up. So it's not the CIA. The only other things that I can't rule out completely is the Super PLA. It must be. Looking at the legs on it, there looks like there's a bit of rough soldering down this side. Doesn't look as clean as you normally see them. The soldering isn't as even. So maybe, I don't know. I really couldn't see how it could be with it running as well as it was in certain aspects, like it would play games. I don't know, this one's tricky. All right, remember to solder up those last 3 pins that I desoldered by mistake. Let's put the CIA back in and give it yet another test and see if we're any further along. What does it do without the CIA in there? Doesn't like that, does it? So this test max shouldn't need it. Something wrong there. That's interesting. Go to the original DES test max. Or dead test. Let's see what dead test says. What on earth? Let's try with the CIA in. Now what do you do? Okay, we're back to where we were. Falling over on the PLA test. So I'm gonna pull the PLA. I have this board which is getting quite pillaged now. There's only the PLA, the logic chips, the CPU and the basic and kernel ROM are still in here. So I've got that as a fallback if I get that desperate, and I can always flash I think a kernel. Can I do that? I think I've got an adapter to do that. But yeah, I can. Let's take this one out of here first and see how that goes before I start trying to mess this one up. It'll be fun. So the pin pitch is a lot narrower on the Super PLA than it is on other ones, and I'm not sure that the desoldering station nozzle is going to fit. Yeah, this is going to be a challenge. That's not switched on, so that's not going to work. But let's shove a load of solder in there and see what happens. Let's do the first like 5 or 6 pins and see, and just want to assess what's going on with this. Oh, the light's just gone off. Well, yeah, it's a very tight fit. There's no wiggle room. I can't wiggle the nozzle. I don't think that's desoldered. I'm just adding extra solder to all of the pins so that the nozzle has something to reach. Let's go down to this. This feels like a ground on this one. Because the solder's, because the nozzle is being held away from the board by the surrounding pins. That's going well so far. They don't feel super free. All the solder is off of the other side though. You can see down, yep, all these pins down here, the solder is gone. I've still got this second half to do. Pretty good. Yeah, I'm reasonably happy with that. I think that will come out fairly easily. It's going to need some hot air as well. Well, they all look clear on that side, and they don't look too bad on this side as well. I don't think it's just going to pop out. I'm not fussed about this board. I'm curious, but I think there's just going to be too many bits of solder hanging on there for it to do anything. So let's get some hot air going. It's up at the other end. There it goes. That was a success. Hopefully it's a good chip, and hopefully I haven't killed it on its way out. So I'm just going to repeat that for the good board. Well, I say good board. More good than this board. Last one. Looks good that side, and it all looks pretty good on the top as well. Very little solder left. Hacko doing a great job. Phew, that one was a little bit more difficult than the last one. I'm just going to mark that one with a dot to say that that's the original. I need to clean these pads up, and I haven't got a socket for this, so the only way that I'm going to be able to test this is by soldering in the replacement, which is an unknown chip. So we shall see. Might make it worse. Some of the legs down this end are really badly bent when they were in the board. It's in. I thought that was going to be much harder to get in there. I need to check the bridges because the pin pitch on this is narrow enough, come here, that that might actually be a problem. No bridges. It still works, but does it work with this? PLA test bad. All of that for nothing. All of that for nothing. I'm stumped. I will go away and have a think and see what's going on. I don't know. With the character ROM and the kernel and basic ROMs must be working. The CPU must be working. This CIA is definitely working, and this one, which I'm pretty sure just controls the keyboard and a few other bits, seems to be working. The RAM is definitely working. Color RAM is definitely working. That's to do with the clock generation. That's working. These three are to do with different parts of, like this one has some clock signals go into it. I'm not sure what they are for. We'll look into that. But it also deals with the chip select for the character and kernel ROMs. I don't know what U22 and U21 do. Let's look into that. Yeah, U22 is part of the part of the reset circuit. I think it's doing some inverting. I'm not sure, but U21, I've found some funky signals on this one. This is some of these high, like that's 5.3 peak to peak, but some of them go even higher than that. 5.3. That one's 5.3. Oh, look at this. I mean, that's really bouncing around. 5.8. And this chip is a 4066, and they very often fail. The MOS ones very often fail in breadboards. I've had bad times with those. And it's connected to the PLA and the VIC-2 and the color RAM and a few other bits and pieces. But with the diagnostics saying that there's something wrong with the PLA, I'm suspecting anything that's connected to, well, I mean, everything's connected to the PLA, but this one seems to be driving certain things on the PLA. So I'm going to take the U21 out and I'm going to swap it, or I'm going to test it in another machine. All right, this is my test machine with a 4066 socketed. So I'm going to stick it in here, see what it does. Should start up, yeah. Let's see if it runs. I'm not sure if the 4066 does the same things in a breadboard though. That might be a sticking point. Yeah, that's running. I'm going to leave this one in here and put the one out of here in the other machine, in a socket. Oh, my soldering iron's not switched on. I wonder why that wasn't moving. Oh, that's not switched on either. All right, known good chip going in here. Diagnostics and power. It's still bad. So that chip is fine. So what are our options? I need to look at what the, I think that one is the 5.5. Have I taken out the wrong chip? No, U22 is the one with the timer function on it. U3 was the addressing one. So it could be that, which is 74 LS08. I've got loads of those. Could be that processor. It could be a very slight fault on the processor. I don't think it's a passive. I really don't think it's a passive. Interesting, it goes straight to PLA bad every time this time. Oh no, that is consistent to what it was doing before. And I've still got no CIAs counting up, even if I put in the normal diagnostics. So I have to make this my #1 suspect. I would like to take U22 and U3 out, and U23. Oh, U18 is the other 4066, which is the same as the one in the bread bin. I don't know if the bread bin has got this one, and U21. I'm not even sure what it does. I'm looking at U3 now. This is part of the ready signal. Oh yeah, it's also it's the one that does the chip select for data lines. I'm going for a U3. Let's take U3 out and see if that makes any difference. That's really blocked. Oh, that might be why it was blocked. That's kind of full. That was all the way into the rubber bung. It's so easy to empty, and yet I don't do it often enough. Oh, that sounds better. Right, where were we? Right, I'm going to take this over to my TL866. Hopefully it'll cool down and won't melt it, and test it at my desktop PC. That chip is fine. It could be pulling out all of the chips here. So I'm going to go for the CIA next. I think that's the most likely. Out of everything that's left, the ROMs I'm fairly sure are working. The CPU I'm really confident is working. The RAM I know is working. Color RAM is working. PLA is working. VIC2 is working. That CIA is good. The SID is fine. It's got to be that. I mean, there is a 4066 next to it. That could be trashing the bus. I haven't scoped that actually. This one owes me some sockets. Ooh, there's a pin that's just floating around there. And that one. Why is that doing that? So that's pin 2 and pin 3. Pin 5 is doing something weird. Pin 8 is pulsing up and down as well. And that's VCC. Let's grab the other shortboard. Here's one I fixed earlier. Yeah, I can fix them. Oh, it's supposed to do that. Yeah, this is exactly the same. It's the CIA. It's got to be the CIA. All right, let's get this CIA out. Let's put it in the right way round. I expect it to boot normally if it is this. Oh, it's not the CIA. It's not the CIA. What on earth? What could it be? It's still saying PLA bad. It's something attached to the PLA, and the only one left is that, or these, or that. It's toss a coin time. This is quite frustrating because, and this happens sometimes. You can just take every chip out, and it'll be the last one you try. It's crashing the computer in such a way that I can't see what's causing it. I don't have the knowledge to diagnose what I'm seeing. I'm going to have a think about it. I've had a bit of an afternoon of it and I've gone a bit mad. So what I've done is I basically socketed everything. Well, apart from that RAM chip there. But yeah, everything else is in a socket now. And I looked at it and I thought, well, I can start taking them off one at a time and testing them in this board. But that would mean that I'd have to socket all of this one. This is my C64C. So, and this one was more socketed. So what I'm going to do, once this is fixed, is I'm going to swap this one with this one, and I'll have this one as my test C64C. So everything that I need is socketed. I only need one of the RAM chips socketed. So I did test this 7406, and that was fine. And I didn't test anything else, but I just put everything in sockets. And this is where we are. So the first thing that I tried once it was all done, well, I'll just show you that the output at the moment is PLA bad, okay? And the first thing I tried was changing the CPU, because what else is there left to try? Well, the only things that were left to try were the two ROMs, really. The logic chips didn't really need, I mean, there was only this one, I think, left to try, and the color RAM. And I took a processor out of the scrap board. One pin trying to escape there. And this is that spare processor. And watch what happens when I turn this on. It only works. Ah! And the SID works, but we knew that. How can it be that this C64 worked with games that I loaded off of the Kung Fu Flash? So the Kung Fu Flash menu worked, and it would boot to BASIC, and had perfect display. It seemed to be working perfectly, and the only thing that was wrong with it was the CPU. How can the CPU be the fault, but it was still working? Sometimes you beat it, and sometimes it beats you. There's not much I can say about this one. I haven't covered myself in glory, but I thought I'd share the journey anyway, because there's a lot to learn from this sort of thing. I don't know how I would approach this any differently, because all of the information that I had to me, all of the scope readings, the diagnostic, the 3 different diagnostics, nothing pointed to the CPU, nothing at all. Everything was pointing to the PLA, or maybe a RAM on dead test. Des test Max was saying all of the RAM was good, and the diagnostics, the normal diagnostics, would just crash randomly after running its RAM test. So what can I say? I have enjoyed fixing this one, and I'm quite proud of the fact that it only took me most of today to get to this stage. Just a note, I think, which chips? I think the only chips that were socketed on here were the SID, the VIC2, and the 8701, the timer chip. I think everything else was soldered to the board. I've taken out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 chips, plus the PLA, so 14 chips, and I haven't damaged a single pad or lifted a single trace. So I am quite proud of what I've done, and I'm not sure that it would have been possible to do it any other way. Really? Argue with me in the comments. It's been a couple of days since I finished this repair, and I've had time to digest what happened. Also, while editing this video, I had another chance to look over what I did and didn't do. To head off some comments, when I make these videos, I can't show every single thing I do along the way. For some of the repair, the cameras are not even switched on and only get switched back on when I have something to show. So there was a lot of scoping and probing going on that didn't make it into the video. But with that being said, after finishing the repair, I couldn't be sure I diligently covered everything I would have wanted to. So after finishing, with hindsight locked and loaded, I put the broken CPU back into this board. And don't worry, it's still broken in exactly the same way. And this allowed me to once again scope all of the pins on this tricky IC and check to see if I'd missed anything. And you know what? I didn't. I'm as surprised as you. I started out scoping the faulty chip and found some of those slightly dodgy looking signals that I'd seen on other chips on the board. Some of the address lines were looking quite high, and there was one signal that was just a sawtooth and really didn't look right. Other address lines looked like they were intermittently being pulled high, and some of the data signals looked like they had address signals mixed in. At first I thought the chip was really badly broken and I'd missed all of these important clues. Then I put the working chip back in and tried the same thing with that, and all of the signals, all of those dodgy looking results, they were all exactly the same. Now, I know there is always a better way to fix a broken computer, but in this case, I really don't know what that would look like, short of using the force. This computer was mostly working and broken in quite a subtle way, and therefore a nightmare to diagnose. When I start a repair, I try to first understand the fault, so I might be able to narrow down the possible problems without removing every chip on the board. But I think it's fair to say that sometimes the fault is going to hide in such a way that you can't always find it through that process of understanding. And all you can do is try your best. But the most important thing I want to take from every single repair is to learn a little more. If I can do that and fix the machine, then overall, I think it's a win. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did and you have a moment, I would really appreciate it if you would click the like button and maybe think about subscribing. This channel, More Fun Fixing It, is my second channel, and you can find links to my main channel, More Fun Making It, down in the description. I will let past Lee sign off here in his own bumbling way. Well, I hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Like and subscribe! I hope that recorded. Yeah, it did. Whoop, whoop. Onwards.